David Consolazio from the University of Milan, where I am assistant professor, and I'm involved directly in the Infra for Next Gen project together with Julia and Ruxandra, among all the other people that are involved. But we most of the things that I will show in a while today uh, are part of the work that Ruxandra, Julia, and I developed together in the context of the project. So basically, we represent a different cross-national survey infrastructure. I'm from the EVS, European Social Survey, and Julia is from the GGS, Gender and Generation Survey, and Ruxandra is from the European Social Survey, the ESS, which is also the leading institution in the Infra for Next Gen project. And it would be nice to talk about all the infrastructure that we used for the project, but we will focus just on the first three, so the ESS, EVS, GGS, and plus Kronos, which is still part of the ESS, but I will describe these later. So the idea is to give an overview of some, not all, some of the sources that you can use, not only in the context of this workshop today, so for the purposes of the exercise that we will develop together in the afternoon session, but also in general in your research activities, if you're a researcher, or in general in your activities, if you're not a researcher, but you're interested and you use data, survey data for your working activities. So there is a lot of material, and somehow it's not that structure, or it was not before our intervention with the project, but now, as you can see, it is easier and more suitable to use this combination, this variety of survey infrastructure. So let's start describing a bit, in general, why these surveys matter. Yes, because they allow analysis with cross-national comparability. So in principle, everyone is able to produce a survey nowadays with internet tools and so on, but to be reliable, this survey have to be produced in a very relevant, pertinent way with high methodological standards. And if you want to compare countries, you have to collect data with a sample population, representative sample population. And so, it is important that these standards are pushed, and these data are all made available freely in the forms of open data. So all the data and all the tools that I will show you today are easily accessible with a couple of clicks, and at most some free subscriptions to the website. And they are essential for social science research and policy analysis. The first one is the European Social Survey, which provide high quality open access data measuring public attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. So we are talking about survey data collected at individual levels. So people are interviewed in European countries. The data are cross-sectional, meaning that the same people are not interviewed again and again, but the sample is different in at every wave. And these are mostly face-to-face interviews. And the project started in 2001, and the first wave was realized a year later in 2002. And we have a new wave every 2 years, and so far we have had 11 waves, and again, all open data. As you can see, as the name suggests, so European Social Survey, the project cover all Europe potentially, but it really depends on fundings for each country. So as you can see, there are countries that participated in all the 11 rounds, which are colored in green in the map, and other countries kind of jump in and out. But in general, we can say that nearly every European country took part in the project at least one time, and most of the countries participated in more than one round. So the coverage is quite high. And about the topic, so there are a lot of information in the ESS study, but the main focus is on social and political attitudes, topics such as trust in institution, democracy, immigration, welfare attitudes, well-being. And basically, the distinctive trait is that each wave consists of a core module, so a set of questions that is repeated in every wave, so that it is possible to track country level changes across here. But there are also a couple of rotating modules, so a set of questions that change every way, and this allowed the survey to be flexible because some topics may emerge in specific times, and in this way, it is possible to introduce questions that are particularly relevant in that specific moment. For instance, 10 years ago, no one had in mind to ask questions about AI in an ESS survey. Instead, now it is possible to have some rotating module for digital inclusion and so on, and we can introduce all these questions. But this is just an example. And the other distinctive trait is that ESS follow the highest methodological standard possible. So not to say that the other surveys are not high in terms of quality, but one of the explicit aim of the ESS is to really follow the highest standards available in survey methodology literature. In this way, it represents a gold standard for the study of opinions and attitudes in Europe. And then, yeah, I might have some missing slides that we recover in a while, so something happened, sorry, in I don't know why some slides have been cut. So yeah, sorry if I do this. And Irena, I guess that we'll have to cut a bit of the registration afterwards. But don't worry because in a moment I'll be here. So I probably made some mistakes copy pasting the previous slide. I had opening another presentation in which there are also information about the other service I wanted to talk you about. Yeah, here it is, the EVS, because we will talk about the inventory later, but we will talk about the EVS and GGS also. So European Value Studies is the most ancient survey infrastructure in Europe because it started in 1981 and it is conducted every 9 years, so it's less frequent compared to the ESS. And so far we had 5 ways and a new one is coming, so some countries are fielding right now. So probably there are some interviewers all around Europe interviewing people for the new wave. So for what will be the EVS 6. And again, it is a large cross-sectional survey, and the focus is a bit different compared to the ESS because it is on values and cultural change, but a common trait is that, again, it's all made openly available. Again, European value studies, so Europe is covered quite well. You can see some same way we saw before for ESS, a map of the countries participating in ESS, in the EVS, and we reached the peak of 47 countries in 2008. Now there are a bit less, but in general, in every way, we cover a lot of countries, again, depending on fundings and availability to conduct the research in each country. And what does the EVS study? So the main focus is on topics such as religion, family values, work ethics, morality, political culture, social norms. So you can see that the distinctive trait is that the focus is on long-term value change, and this is why also the survey takes place every 9 years because cultural change is slower in its onset compared to opinions change. So 9 years is probably enough. It is not so necessary to take the same survey every 3 years or 2 years. And the interest is on the cultural and normative dimensions. So I would say that the EVS is fundamental for the study of deep social and cultural change. And then we have the GGS, the Generation and Gender Survey, which is part of the Generations and Gender Program. This is a longitudinal pattern. So the EVS and ESS are cross-sectional. Instead, here, the same respondents are interviewed again and again. And so these allow studying um, life course perspective, so within individual change over time. And also the focus is quite different. We can say that the ESS and EVS are more similar between the self, even though they focus on slightly different aspects. Instead, the GGS is completely different because it's focused on demographic behavior and family and life course dynamics. But again, all open data. It's not just about Europe. Europe is quite well covered here, as you can see, but we have some Asian countries and South American countries and Australia as well. And it started in 2004, and now we have two rounds, each consisting of some waves. So it is possible to again monitor this individual change. And the topic, it's different, as I said. So main focus is about fertility intentions and behaviors, partnership formations and dissolution, intergenerational relationship, work, family balance, gender roles. So you can see all these more demographic aspects of um, of the of the world, basically. So this integrates out the possibility to study the life course perspective. So the dynamic change is not just this, not analyzing the topic just in a static ways, and again to study micro level demographic processes. So it is perfect for the study of familiar and demographic dynamics. And here to sum up this table, basically I'm not repeating what I've said just now, but since the slides will be made available afterwards, here you can have this table that can be useful for you if you need to have a summary of the salient traits of each survey. I go back to the original presentation, sorry. And yes, so as already mentioned by Julia, in the context of the Infra for Next Gen project, we started from these surveys and also other that we didn't um, went into detail, so the EQLS, Eurobarometer, ISSP, and basically there is extensive data, extensive information which is publicly available, but there was no central searchable repository for these items. So basically, if you need to search, so suppose you have a research question, you want to find some indicators, so from some information to display or to cross to combine, you have to search within each website separately, and sometimes you have to download different PDF with the questionnaires, also for the same survey if there are different waves, and so it is difficult to keep track of which item has been asked where and when, and if these items is repeated or not. And so basically we went through all these items asked cross-sectionally in these surveys, and we identify the ones that are most pertinent to the objective of each of the next generation EU pillars. So make it healthy, green, strong, equal, and digital, which is of interest today. And the outcome is this inventory for each pillar. So basically a single Excel spreadsheet that has been nicely put online, in which you can navigate all the item in a single environment without having to jump in and out from different websites and files, PDF files, and so on. As you can see, there's a lot of information covered because if we include the five main survey infrastructure in Europe, we have more than 3,000 items. And if you include also the Eurobarometer, we reach almost 11 items. And in this table, you can see how they are divided across the different next generation EU pillar. And it is not present in this table, but we also introduce Chronos items, which will be explained later what they are. So in this link that I clicked, and are you sure if it works? Yes, it is opening. You can see that, yeah, just closing a bit of Windows, yes. This link is available freely, of course, in the Infra for Next Gen website. You are here, you just have to put some information about your role, which is useful for us. You can choose to display a standard or an advanced version of the tool, but it's more or less the same. Here I'm saying that I'm interested in displaying all the pillar, but I can change all these things later. So don't worry if you change your mind about what to do. And basically, this is the spreadsheet that I was talking about, uploaded online, but it is just, it is simply a data, not a data set, a data matrix with a spreadsheet with some information. So you can see there are a lot of items, so survey questions, and for each survey questions, there is of course information of the survey and the years and the way in which have been repeated, question text, and the response categories. And here you can see everything, but the important thing is that you can pillar. So suppose, as in this case today, we are interested in focusing just on questions related to the Make It Digital pillar. You can filter it, or suppose that I need advance that I know questions just from the EVS, just to say, or EVS and ESS. I can do it, and the same I can put filters for the years. So suppose I want to conduct a research only including data collected only in recent years. I can select it and so on and so forth. I can also introduce some keywords. So suppose I'm interested in artificial intelligence. I put so many filters that there is nothing anymore, but this is just to give an idea of what is possible to do. And so you can filter everything and find yeah, sometimes the filter breaks and you have to refresh and find what is relevant for you. And you can download not the actual data set behind the variable, but the list of variables. And then, of course, once you have the list of variables of questions, you can go to each website to download them. And yeah, it's pretty easy to use. In the keyword bar, you can also use Boolean operators such as and, or, and so on. So you can combine uh, some terms to have a more refined research. The suggestion is really to go in and play around because it is made with intention to be very intuitive to use, but is a very useful surface software platform, let's say, because it allows exploring data in a single environment, and we're having some very positive feedbacks from researchers because they say that it can save a lot of time and can make the search of information not only like shorter in terms of time, but also more efficient. So you can find items, questions that you didn't know exist. And the other thing that I can show you, yes, it's the not that I made some mistakes with the slides today. So basically, another thing that we can show you again in the Infra for Next Gen website. See, this is the homepage. All the links will be provided, so don't worry if you don't find uh, everything now. This is the link, as you can see, for the searchable inventory. But we also have this e-next gen educational tool, which again was mentioned previously by Julia. So the initial tool was developed within the EVS, and it was called the EVS tool, and it was possible to navigate some relevant questions in the EVS and already display data in this map format, and to combine data and to select some categories, some combination, without having to actually download the data. So it is good for teaching purposes, also not in university, but in like upper secondary school or even lower grade secondary school, to show how some key variables are distributed and the potential of data for understanding the world. And the original tool from the EVS was so much appreciated that in the context of the Info for Next Gen project, we decided to replicate the same tool, but to the whole data to the world survey infrastructures that are part of the project. So all the ESS, EVS, EQLS, and ISSP. So as you can see, you can select some variables here, and some are about the digital, but I can, yeah, I saw online harassment, for instance, and you have the distribution of this variable across Europe. And if you pass the mouse, you can see the percentage, and you can also stratify analysis by gender, age, educational level, residence, such as the rural urban dimension, and combination of these social demographic variables. So, for instance, young men, young, educated, and so on and so forth. And if the information has been collected in more than one way, you can use this light bar to move across different years. And you can also click here on compare maps to add another map. And for instance, you can have the same indicator for different social demographic variables. So you can see on one side men and the other women. And again, the suggestion or also different years for the same indicators. So here I'm seeing men in 2011 and men in 2016. As before, the suggestion is really to go in and play around because, again, it is made with the purpose to be very easy and immediate to use. And you can also click here on explore, and you can explore again the data in a more, not in a visual, not in a map format, but in a more traditional uh, graph format. And this is about the online tools, but you might be interested in downloaded the ESS data as well. So I go back to my presentation. I promise that we will share the appropriate slides with all the relevant links that we need. So, for instance, another tool, you can find it on the ESS website. You can click here, and you can, within the same environment, explore ESS data. If you click here, and you can browse by round, so the way in which the data have been collected, or by country, or by theme. So for instance, in this case, you have these um, topics. For instance, here, digital social contacts was a um, specific module that was asked just in the ESS 10. And if you click on it, you can see you have a brief descriptions of what's inside, and there is the questionnaire and also some document with the theoretical explanation that guided the development of survey questions, just to show you the documentation where it upload. But in the middle, you can see that these are the waves. So these data are available just for wave 10. And if you click on these arrows, these free tool open apps, you can see this one does not. And you can already display some variables from the ESS without the need to download the data. So if you're not confident in data analysis and you're interested in just in showing some key variables, you can do it. So you can see just, for instance, you can filter by team, and yeah, digital contacts, then the variables. So about the digital device, for instance, location able to access the internet at home. You can see how it is distributed across the countries that took part on that ESS wave, and you already have a map. And yeah, this is the document, sorry, that I wanted to show you before. So you have this information about the variables, but the useful thing is that you can cross-tabulate some key variables. So here you're in the viewer mode that it is open by default, but if you click on analysis, you have the possibility to click add question variable, and you can select another variable that can be another social demographic variable, for instance, very typical example. Yeah, sorry, my connection is suffering about digital divide. Yeah. And for instance, the same variable as before divided by gender, and You can see all these bars. Yeah, sometimes the representation is not that intuitive, or you can cross with another indicator like media, social trust. Yeah, how people, for instance, use the internet, depending on how they are able uh, to see it, and you see the cross tabulation, and depending on the type of variables that you select, so they can be categorical or numerical variables. You can have an histogram, a scatter plot, or box plot, or whatever. So you cannot choose, but it's automatic depending on the type of variables. But most importantly, so remove one variable, you can also click here and, for instance, see the data table behind the graph. So if you want to import it in your Excel environment or other software, you can already do this and produce your own visualization according to your preference. And the very important thing is that you know that survey data must be weighted to have appropriate estimates, and all the data set, all the information, all the data that you see here in this online tool of the ESS are already weighted. So basically they are ready to use. If you download this data, you don't need to do anything else. And then so this is yeah, you can also download the data, but I'm not going into detail here. So basically, I leave it in the slide. There is the link to download the data with a very simple tutorial that I prepare here, with the path that you need to click to go to download it, to prepare your own data set and to, for instance, select the ways or the countries and the variables that you need. You can use this data file builder, which is a component of the ESS website, and you can arrange and download the data set that you need. And then, very importantly, also for today's exercise, and this is the last thing that I will cover in my presentation today, is Chronos, which has been mentioned several times today, and always we said every time we will discuss about it later, and here we are. So it is, let's say, sub-project that is part of the ESS, which is panel, okay, not a cross-sectional survey, but kind of cross-sectional web panel, which is supposed to become also longitudinal panel with respondents recruited from the ESS. So again, we have survey data at the individual level covering European countries, and it is a mixture of cross-sectional and longitudinal data. And these are web interviews, not face-to-face interviews, online and offline. We have offline interviews also in Chronos 3 to cover people that do not use the internet. And it started in 2017 as a pilot study, and then the pilot study was successful. So we repeated the panel 3 times. So Chronos 1, Chronos 2, and now we have Chronos 3. And each uh, study has different waves. That's why it's a panel. And again, open data. So what's the difference? Why we say it's different compared to the ESS? Because the ESS is a repeated cross-sectional study. So the sample changes in every way, but some questions are repeated. So you can keep track of changes across countries in time, but the respondents are not the same. So you cannot track individual level change as you can do, for instance, in the GGS study survey, as I mentioned. Instead, Kronos is a cross-sectional panel, so the respondents are recruited from the ESS. So basically, when they respond to ESS 10 or 11, for instance, at the end of the survey, they ask if they are willing to take part in this project, and then they can be interviewed in subsequent ways. But the questions are mostly different. So that's why it is a cross-sectional panel. It's a kind of different thing, a hybrid thing compared to what you find in more traditional survey infrastructure, because you usually have the cross-sectional and the longitudinal. Here, which is a panel. Here we have a cross-sectional panel. So we have the same respondents in every way, but mostly with different questions. The idea is not to keep track of changes at the individual level, but to have a flexible instrument that allows to like propose new questions every time it is possible, it is necessary to have it. So it is very quick and flexible because it is online. We can have a new field every few months instead of years, and actually that's what we did. And in Kronos 3, 11 countries participated. The idea is to expand country coverage in the next waves of Kronos. And yeah, so basically we had this Kronos 1, which was a pilot. Respondents were recruited from the ESS 8, and then Kronos 2 from the ESS 10, and now we have this Kronos 3. So basically, we have 8 waves, but the ones that are of interest for us are the 5 waves relative to the Infra for Next Gen project. So waves 1 to 5. And in each wave, we ask questions which have been developed according to the 5 pillars. Some questions were taken from other surveys, so we can have questions that were already asked in the, I don't know, ISSP, EDS, but not in the ESS, and other, for instance, were explicitly developed, so from scratch to cover new aspects. For instance, questions about AI were mostly absent because it's a new phenomenon, it's a new thing, and so most of these questions were developed from scratch. And this is about the design. So basically, it is a web. It was at the beginning a web panel, but then we, of course, we realized we already knew it, but the idea, we realized that if you carry out just a web panel, it can be biased towards the population that stay online. But we know that if we want to have a representative sample of the population that we investigate, we have to take into account also people that do not use the internet. So according to the variable that we have from the ESS, so how often do you use the internet? If person responded that never or only occasionally um, basically use the internet, we send them a paper questionnaire because we know that if we send them a link, they probably won't see it and won't respond to the questionnaire. So to integrate the offline population, we also relied on the paper, traditional paper and pencil questionnaire that, of course, it was subsequently digitalized to become part of the digital data set. And you can see about some information about the study, some technical information. You can see the percentage of panelists, for instance, who completed all the 5 ways, which are very heterogeneous across countries, but in general they are very high. So, for instance, in I have the bar here in Slovenia, almost 74% of the panelists complete all the 5 surveys, which is a very high number. And here you can see the response rate in general that in each wave that were very high because panel attrition is a very uh, problematic issue in survey research. And of course, you can see that some, yeah, basically we had some dropouts and so on, but in general, the response rates were very high. And so how is the Kronos 3 panel structure? We have 5 waves consisting of 90 questions, 18 per wave, for each of the next generation EU data. And yeah, I already talked about these. So the question very developed by the Kronos team together with the academic experts such as Lasse and the JRC experts such as Beatrice that will have the presentation after me. So we interact all together to develop these items, which need to be relevant in terms of academic output, so more traditional research, but also for policy use. That's why we had in mind to involve both the academic and the JRC expert from the European Union. And all the other things, I already talk about them. And yeah, this is the content. So to come to the to the topic, you can see a very um, concise way to show the data. So for instance, we had About the digital, you have information about the distribution of digital connectivity, artificial intelligence, and also experiments, so survey experiment on sharing personal data. So a lot of informations are present. And how to get this data? Again, it's part of the ESS. So the website is the ESS website. And here you click on data. Again, don't worry about the links because everything will be shared um, during this presentation. Afterward, the slides will be made available, but go to the European Social Survey website, data, and Kronos. Before we were on European Social Survey, which is the main survey. Then we have Kronos, and then you can see that we have also other things, so other sub-projects. And Kronos 1, 2, and 3, as I mentioned. Now we are focusing on Kronos 3, and you can focus on sorry, you can browse by wave, and the waves that are of interest for us is R1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, or by country. But what is mostly more useful for me is to browse by theme. So in this case, we can see all the Make It Digital items with an explanation, and then you can see all the variables that have been asked across all the 5 waves. So all at a glance, and then you can also have a search here. Like, let's see. Yeah, I was typing artificial intelligence, but just to make an example, and you see that one was filtered. We had this question in wave 4, and if you click on the arrow, you had the same tool that I showed previously concerning the ESS. So it is exactly the same, I would say. So the item, the distribution, the map, and the possibility to click on analysis and add another item and see how it it is different. I don't know. Education, yeah, ILS, the education. No. Okay, so just to to see. And then, yeah, everything basically is the same. You have to go inside and play around a bit and explore. And there are, again, different type of graph according to um, to the type of variables. And also I forgot to show you relating to the ESS, but this is the same. You can download everything just by clicking here. It requires a login, but you don't even need to register because, for instance, you can log in with Google. So I can see logging in with my personal Google account, and in a couple of clicks, I'm allowed to download the thing that I select in CSV, SPSS, or Stata format, which of course, if you use other software, you can import and convert. So if you are Python or anything else, you can use it. And so again, it's pretty intuitive, but of course, if for this workshop you need some help, we are also here to help you in exploring the data and downloading them. I guess that yes, I finish. Yeah, I leave in the slide also some yeah, the path or about yeah, to do these things. So you can see, click on variable viewer, click on analysis, and everything that I show it's in the slide.